Did you know original equipment components are only the starting point in our product design process? In fact, they represent only the minimum standard of performance for us. DIS coils like these are an excellent example of how our engineers replicate product specs and then make improvements to overcome OE design shortcomings. This kind of thing happens here every day. A principal cause of coil failure is arcing between the secondary or outer winding and the primary or inner winding of a coil. Ouch! Geez, don't do that. This destroys the coil and often takes the ignition control module with it. It's important to note when replacing a failed module to always test the coil. A failed coil is often the cause for unnecessary module failure. Obviously, you should try to determine what caused the coil to fail in the first place. For example, a bad ignition wire is a common cause of this problem. Why does this happen, and what did we do to stop this? Current in any electrical system is always trying to find the path of least resistance. When this path is blocked for any reason, it will look for the next easiest way through the system. Unfortunately, the passage it finds in the OE design coil is to arc between the windings, or often through the bottom of the coil, using the module as a high voltage conductor. Our engineers developed a highly effective fix for this OE design shortcoming. As you can see here, our coil has a dielectric sleeve inserted between the windings. These sleeves stop arcing and therefore prevent this common coil failure. There you have it. Problem solved. OE doesn't have this innovation, nor do any of our aftermarket competitors. Another Wells advantage.
Hey, welcome to another live Wells Tech training event. We are so happy you are here. We have got a great class for you today. We are going to be talking about hybrids, and not just what you can fix on a hybrid vehicle without being certified. We're going to talk about what you can fix on a hybrid vehicle when you are certified, okay? And even if you're not certified, you can learn how to do it. We have a special guest here today. His name is Jim Bates. We're going to be bringing him in just a minute. Okay, but before we get started, yes, it's time for the t-shirt giveaway. And by the way, stay tuned because we're going to start giving away back probes too. So not in this one, but in the future, next month. All right, so here we are, t-shirt giveaway. You first one with the correct answer will win one of these great Wells t-shirts, Wells Tech t-shirts. Okay, here's the question. Last time out, we talked about how many hybrids are on the road today in the United States. What was that answer? How many hybrids are on the road today? And here's your answers. A, 15 million. B, 20 million. C, 30 million. Oh, I suppose I should do an L here, huh? Not an M. Okay. And D, 3.5 million. Okay. A, B, C, or D. Text in the correct answer. Be the first one to do that, and we'd be glad to send you out your very own Wells Tech t-shirt. And when you get this, by the way, I'd love to have you send me a selfie because we'll put those up too. All right. Without further delay, I'm going to bring in a hybrid guru. This guy has done more training classes on hybrids than anybody else I know. There's no one that in the industry, in my opinion, that knows more about hybrids. And he's going to be here today, and he's going to be doing a couple classes with us and showing you what he knows. All right. With that, my buddy from Wrenching Up, Jim Bates.
Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy you are here, Jim.
And you have all my toys here.
And we do have all the toys. And the last time when Mike and I did this training, we talked about you need special tools. Okay, we didn't show any special tools because we weren't really into doing a hybrid repair. We were talking about what we could fix on a hybrid without being certified or with really not knowing much about hybrids. That's me.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
That's me. And I'll tell you what, Jim, before we get started, you know, if I still had my shop today, I would have a hard time justifying getting this equipment and then, you know, working on hybrids because, you know, we're in Wisconsin. We don't have a lot of hybrids running around, that kind of thing. But, you know, if nobody else in town is fixing it, well, maybe then I might be interested, you know, rather than just sending them back to the dealer. Okay, so let's talk about that today, how much this costs and what the value of these are, you know, these tools.
Okay. Well, I have these things categorized in gotta have and nice to have.
And nice to have, good, all right.
So let's start with gotta have.
Yes.
And I think the reason why you gotta is because, like you might have just said, not a lot of hybrids around, but you know, there are some jobs today that you may want to do on a hybrid, you know, besides tires and oil changes and, you know,
And that's
maintenance,
true,
that sort of
right,
thing.
your regular maintenance
What
stuff.
if, as an example, it needs a new 12-volt battery? And a lot of them do now because they're getting
Yep.
pretty old.
And putting in a 12-volt battery, I think I could do that.
You could, and you don't even need to shut the whole hybrid system down for
Right.
that. Some people would like to, just to be on the safe side. It's not necessary. But the reason why we might do 12-volt battery maintenance because, well, is it just an old battery? Is there something wrong with it? Or maybe the DC to DC converter is not charging it. Kind of like
Oh.
an alternator wouldn't charge it.
Yes.
And you may need to check a DC to DC converter. For that reason, you need to know how to shut them down and make them safe. And then once you get your equipment hooked up, make that test. And we'll show you how to do that in one of these classes.
Okay, let me just stop you there a second, okay? Now, they don't have DC to DC converters on regular cars, all right?
True.
And so when you say that, I kind of got an idea of what you're talking about, but I really don't.
All
Okay,
right.
can you tell me what a DC to DC converter is?
Okay, let's compare it with an alternator real quick. The job of an alternator is to run the vehicle's electrical system. A lot of
Right.
people think that the 12-volt battery does. No, the alternator does.
Right.
And then whatever the alternator's got left over after running the vehicle electrical system, it can devote to charging the battery and keeping that up to where it's supposed to be.
Right.
But in a hybrid vehicle, we don't need one of those alternators because what we have in a hybrid is this giant battery in the
Right,
back
yeah.
that's got tons of current and tons of voltage. And so we'll take that and we'll step it down through a DC to DC converter to about 14.5 volts or so to run the vehicle's electrical system. And the DC to DC converter can also charge the 12-volt battery.
So it's
Kind
a
of like
big
an
alternator.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
But solid state.
Okay, all right,
right.
wonderful.
So,
That
but
helps.
Let's talk about one more thing.
Okay.
What if your customer's hybrid has an air conditioning system that needs service? And you service it just like you do any other air conditioning system, with one exception. The compressor is electric, and it runs on the voltage level of the battery in the vehicle. So in other words, if you have a Prius, your air conditioning compressor is running around about 200 volts or so, right? On a Ford, about 330. You know, Honda's about 158. You know, depending on what the voltage of the hybrid system is. So for that reason, you got to know how to shut them down, make them safe, so you can replace a component or service the system.
You know, even if I was surfacing something else in the engine and those orange cables were near me, I'd want to shut this thing down. That makes me nervous. That makes me nervous.
Yeah, a lot of people think that way. And since you mentioned orange cables, there's one other thing that I was going to mention. I'll do that right now.
Okay.
Damage to the orange cables, especially underneath the car, is a lot of times caused by critters.
Oh,
We find things like
They would have a real
chipmunks
surprise
and
there.
well, they eat the insulation.
Yeah.
They like to chew on that insulation, the orange stuff, because it's a organic type of material that they
Oh, is
make
that right?
out. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Pretty weird. And we've seen an awful lot of those orange cables that had to be replaced because of critter damage.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. So again, you really need to know how to shut down the system. So that brings me to gotta. You gotta have the gloves. And I want to talk a little bit about these gloves.
Yes, please.
First of all, the gloves are what protects you from the high voltage as you're handling the shutdown mechanism. We'll talk more about what those are, or doing some testing on a live high voltage circuit. And you saw me take the glove out of this leather
Weather
protector.
protector, yeah.
The gloves will withstand 1,000 volts.
Okay.
but they're not, so they're electrically strong, but they're not physically strong. It's easy to poke a hole in them or tear them,
okay.
you know, on a sharp thing under the hood or around where you're working. And so normally you then put on these leather gloves to protect the glove itself from that kind of
Right.
damage. What you need to know about gloves is they come in different classes. And this has got a red label on it, which means it's a class 0, or sometimes people say class O. You got to have a class 0 glove, and that will protect you, in this case, up to 5,000 volts, so you can work on just any hybrid or high voltage system
In
out
this
there.
case, a little extra protection. Yeah, that's okay.
That's right. So the glove is going to be a class 0 or class O glove, and it's going to have a red label on it. Now the next thing you'll notice on this glove is it's got a date. And once it just says July 23rd, 2015. That's the last time they were inspected.
Okay.
And they need to be inspected every 6 months or so. And so you would have to send them in someplace to where they would inspect them. There's lots of places that you can do that. You can take them to many industrial supply places. You can take them, you can send it back into the factory where you buy your gloves, and they will do it as well. And then they'll send them back to you. And there is a video on my YouTube channel that explains that very, very well.
I heard that if they do have a leak, they send them back to you with the thumb cut off.
Actually, they'll send them back to you perhaps with a little white circle around where they found the leak.
Oh.
And that shows you that and they're not going to recertify the glove.
Right.
But I like that idea because it shows you where the problem occurs, so you might be a little bit more careful next time when you're doing whatever it was that you did that you ruined your.
I heard that they cut the thumb off so that you don't use it, and you're for sure not to use it again.
Some of them might do that.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
But, and some won't. So it depends on where you get it from.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, another
Whatever their
thing
policy
you
is.
want to be careful of is how much space you have between the glove itself and your leather protector. OSHA says you got to have at least a ½ inch, and here we've got what, probably 2.5 or so.
2 inches, yeah.
We have plenty. And the reason for that is your gloves might get grease or dirt on them, which could be conductive. And so you don't want any high voltage creeping up the grease and the dirt and then getting to you. And in this case, that would not happen. So these are all common sense things. You need your high voltage protecting gloves, something to protect them, maintain a distance, and you're pretty much good to go.
Now, once we shut down the system, right, we can take these gloves off and we can work on the air conditioning. We don't have to wear these gloves while we're working on the air conditioning.
That is correct.
Okay.
Once you shut the system down and verify that you're at 0 voltage at the place where you want to work, then you can take your gloves off.
Okay.
So let's talk about two things real quick. 0 voltage. How do you check for 0 voltage? Well, you do it with your voltmeter.
Okay.
It's
I
very
got a
simple.
voltmeter.
The thing of it is, though, you got to have a voltmeter that's Cat 3 insulation to protect you against these higher voltages. If you use a meter that is less than Cat 3, it's probably going to ruin the meter if it's not at 0 voltage. And if you don't have your gloves on, it's probably going to ruin you too. So one of the things you got to be careful of. Now check your meters. If you bought something in the past few years, it probably is a Cat 3. You probably just never noticed that. So look for the CAT Roman numeral 3, 1000 volt. And don't forget, your leads have to be Cat 3 also, and it will say that on the test leads.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so if you got an older meter and you need some new leads, be sure you get Cat 3 leads for your Cat 3 meter.
I would assume that AES Wave probably has those leads, I would think.
Oh, I would assume so.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
We like the boys at AES Wave.
Indeed so. All right, a couple other things you may have noticed. The bag says warning, hybrid vehicle in service. It just lets perhaps the person in the stall next to you understand that you are working on a hybrid vehicle. It's got a magnetic backing too, and we'll stick it right to the vehicle that's being worked on to kind of remind everybody that, oh, there's a hybrid over here.
And then, you know what, this is a great idea, Jim, because when Mike and I were doing the training class before this, you know, I came to the conclusion that, yeah, okay, I'd work on hybrid vehicles. I'm not sure I'd work on the hybrid system, but I'll work on the hybrid vehicles. And when we are working on a hybrid vehicle, we came to the conclusion it was best to let the guy in the stall next you know you're working on a hybrid, and this is where you disconnect it in case you see me jumping around here funny, right? Okay, you run back over there, and we thought, okay, you put a flag up there, right, where the disconnect is so you can find it real quick and easy. But look at this. There's a magnet on the back here. You can bunk right on the side of the vehicle. Here's your gloves in here already and everything, all set to go. Come save me.
Right.
That's what this is. Come save me.
One of the things I want to point out is, yes, it has a magnetic backing, but this is a cloth backing.
Yeah.
There's no metal magnet or magnetic material to scratch the vehicle or something.
Right.
So you can just take, and you can store your gloves in the bags, what I do.
That's
take
nice.
the gloves out, just stick it to the vehicle. We'll show you how that works a little bit.
How much does this
Later.
rig cost right here? Just these, just this.
Oh, let's see. I think you're probably
an estimate.
talking 80-ish, 80, 90 bucks right
That's
in there.
nothing, guys. $100, save your butt.
There you go. So this is your GATA.
Yes.
I think probably a Cat 3 meter is a GATA as well, if you're going to be doing your zero voltage checks.
Absolutely.
And that sort of thing.
Yep.
Now, some nice to have stuff would be tools, and these are Cat 3 as well. I brought this set just because you can see the kind of extent that some of these tool makers will go to provide you with everything you could possibly need for working on a
And
high
then
voltage
some.
system. And it's a bit overkill. This is a nitpick set like you'd find in the dealerships that sell and maintain hybrids. Very expensive.
Yeah.
This
it looks
one,
that way. And I'm not sure where you use this.
I kind of wondered about that too. I'm not up to cutting a 300-volt cable, but even if I did, you can't repair it because these are shielded cables and you can't repair the shielding.
Right.
But you get that anyway. It's one of these tool time things, right? It's kind of cool hanging on
Right.
the wall.
It looks cool. I think these do look cool.
Right. But this is a set that got put together based on what I use in all of my classes, and this is put together by Easy Red. And this is really handy. It's just basically what you need: the screwdrivers,
There you
the
go.
insulated drive,
Yeah.
an extension. Use your own sockets. And I can't remember exactly what the price is on this, but it's close to $100,
Oh.
125, something like that, for what you need.
You pay that much for a ratchet.
And the day-to-day, yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
So it's a good price on that.
That is a good price.
This is an insulation tester, and on some
You're starting to
of my
make me
videos,
think. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You're starting to make me think maybe I should get into this.
what it's going. Well, all right, you figure maybe this, maybe maybe $400 total
Yeah,
investment.
yeah, no kidding.
Somewhere in there. But I want to tell you about an insulation
Yes,
tester.
Sorry.
When we're maintaining and testing and diagnosing problems with the orange cables, it's an insulation test. We're trying to find out where it's blowing through, where the
Yeah.
short is.
Yeah.
And that's going to set a code, of course. A PO 3000, I think, is what the PO 3000, I think,
Okay.
is what it is. And you get a code like that, and this vehicle comes in on a flatbed. It's not going to run.
Yeah,
because
it's going
got
to
a
shut
high
it
voltage
down.
meter.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to be driving this vehicle.
Right. So in order to find those types of problems, use an insulation tester. This is the one I like. I have two. I have one by Bosch, which is really great, top of the line. Everything's all automatic, but it's real expensive. And so in my classes, I always use this one because
Sure.
this is the one
Yeah.
everybody could afford.
Right.
And what it does is applies 1,000 volts to the system that you're checking, but only pushing 1 milliamp.
Oh, no kidding.
So it's safe.
Oh, wow.
But that kind of voltage pressure will cause that 1 milliamp to find the pinhole.
Right.
And it will record on your display how much of a leak it is. And so you'll quickly find the source of your
Will
problem.
you be able to visualize that leak then? Is that?
Because you'll be checking sections of wire.
Oh, I
And the
see.
section of wire that you check, when you say, okay, here it's in here somewhere, then you can look for the physical damage.
Right.
And you'll see a pinhole or a chewed something or other.
Well, do you actually run the current through those wires and then look for the arc like you would on a spark plug wire? Or
It's
something?
not an arc.
Oh,
No,
it
it's just a
doesn't.
reading on the meter.
Ah.
It doesn't have enough, it's got certainly enough push, but it doesn't have enough amperage.
To jump, to bridge it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, right. Remember,
Okay.
the amperage is the flow of electrons, and
You're
there's
right.
not that many of them there. So we have push, but really nothing to see.
Right.
If
Okay.
you-
That
one
makes
way to
sense.
visualize
Yeah,
that.
that's good.
Okay, I have some safety goggles, and sometimes people will buy a whole set from somebody like Magid Glove and Safety Company, who provides this, and in the high arc, and they always recommend that you put safety goggles on whenever you're working around high voltage in case there is a spark,
Yeah.
and it'll protect your eyes from the spark or whatever the spark throws off. So that's probably a good idea to have.
The flash.
Yeah.
It's kind of like welding. Or
Yeah, goggles.
Is that why it's green? Is the
Could be. I don't
Okay,
know.
all right.
I never questioned that.
Okay.
I just thought, okay, these are my green goggles. These are for working on hybrid.
See, I'm your worst nightmare.
And it
'Cause-
matches their logo color.
right. I'm your worst nightmare because I'm asking all the questions that
That's fine.
normally you wouldn't.
That's right. They say, where do you come up with
Yeah,
this
I
stuff?
know. I
Mark?"
don't know.
All right, I have one more thing that's kind of, I mean, it'd be definitely cool to have, and it's this, and it's a high voltage battery, the big battery in the back of the vehicle. It tests those things, and this is a Midtronics HYB 1000. And the way this one works is it's got a wireless convergence module that plugs into your OBD2 connector, and it just talks wireless instead of having a wire.
That's sweet.
Yeah, so you punch in the year model of the vehicle, you throw it on the passenger seat, and you go drive around for about 20 minutes or so, and the device collects all the information it needs to determine the state of health and or any issues that your high voltage battery might have. And so this is kind of a neat thing to have, but it's a scan tool, and it's priced like a scan tool. So you really need to be doing about, I would guess maybe 4 hybrid jobs every week in order for a payback
Yeah,
like
to
this.
pay- yeah.
But see, here's the thing. You can get the information this provides with the scan tool you have now, as long as you got the software in it for the year model car that you're working on.
no kidding.
But the problem, though, is that when you go to the battery ECU and pull up data stream, you got yards and yards of data.
Yeah.
It has to be looked at while the vehicle is moving. That means you get 2 people, right? You driving, perhaps, or somebody driving and you looking at the scan tool trying to make sense out of the data.
Yeah,
So
no-
it's a 2-person operation, and this way this makes sense because it brings it down to 1 person, and it's a labor issue.
And it condenses it
Yeah.
all the information down.
So those are the tools that I use, and obviously this just doesn't get used very much. This right here is what I use all the time.
Well, I'll tell you what. If I still had my shop and I was going to change the oil on a hybrid vehicle, personally, I would go out there, I'd want to disable it first. Just because, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there, you two included, you've been zapped. You've been hit with high energy, right?
Not from a hybrid.
Not from a hybrid, but from like a spark plug, right? Everybody's
yeah.
been zapped, right? You didn't like that. This is hundreds times worse. And yeah, it just makes me nervous, real
Oh,
nervous.
yeah,
Before, I would want to disconnect it. Okay, and it's just my personal preference.
Okay.
Just because, is there a disadvantage to doing that, disconnecting it?
Nope.
Okay, so you can just go in there and disconnect it and do your work and then put it back in and away you go.
Right.
All right, very good.
Let me just say one thing.
Okay.
Off is off. So if it has a power button, make sure it's not lit.
Ah,
Because remember, on a hybrid, it could be turned on, the engine's not running, and people forget that the
Right.
thing is still turned on. So always look at the power button and make sure it's off, make sure the dashboard is dark. If it's like a Ford with a key, obviously, your key is off and out. But
and that was the other thing too that we talked about is putting the key like on the workbench so you don't have the vehicle up in the air and all of a sudden it decides it's going to charge up the batteries and starts up.
yeah, you're thinking about these smart keys.
Yeah,
A lot of the, I can't say a lot of the vehicles, but vehicles that have smart keys, and Toyota comes to mind, oftentimes if you look underneath the dashboard around the steering wheel someplace, you'll find a button. And,
Okay.
and you can push that button and it turns the receiver off.
oh,
So the smart key has no effect, but still,
Okay.
those are, you don't see those all the time. So it's a good idea to keep the vehicle key away from the
Yep.
vehicle. And people have said, oh, it's got to be 4 feet, 8 feet, it's this and that. Some of you guys know this. You could start one of these vehicles all the way across your shop.
Yep.
So you really don't know. Yep, keep the key away, but make sure that that power button light is off and the dashboard is dark. That's your first
that's
line
a
of
very
defense.
good point. That's a very good point.
Right.
And that's, this whole thing and just, I think it's not that hard to disconnect these, okay? You typically. I know we're going to do one on a Honda right now, and you got to take the back seat out, that kind of thing. But still, I would still do that. If I'm working on this thing, I would just for my own, my own mind, my own,
Right. Right.
So I
So-
feel satisfied.
Yeah, and we'll show you how that works. And the Honda's probably the most pain in the butt because you got to remove, you got to bring the back seat forward.
So we're going to show you that one.
Right. On many of the other ones, though, it's easily accessible, easy to get out. In fact, on my YouTube channel, there's one on a Toyota, and you can see how simple that is. It was the glove episode where we're explaining the glove, but at the end, I take the master disconnect out, or the service jack as they call it, show you what's inside, show you how it works, and how easy it is to take it out and put it back in. But we can show you that right here now too on a
Yep,
Honda.
that's what we're going to do. Okay, is there anything else you want to add?
Not that I can think of.
Nope. Okay, let's say we're going to do an oil change on this Honda, and I want it disconnected.
I will show you how.
Okay, let's go do that. Hey, welcome to another live Wells Tech training event. We are so happy you are here. We have got a great class for you today. We are going to be talking about hybrids, and not just what you can fix on a hybrid vehicle without being certified. We're going to talk about what when you are certified. Even if you're not certified, you can learn how to do it. We have a special guest here today. His name is Jim Bates. We're going to be bringing him in just a minute. Okay, but before we get working underneath the car, I won't have to worry about the orange cable or anything like that, and just
Right.
do my regular job.
And speaking about working on the vehicle, you want everyone to know that you're doing that. So again, we can take the magnetic back bag that we have that says we're working on a hybrid and stick it someplace. on the
And I
vehicle.
love this bag idea. And you know what? Even if we're just doing regular maintenance on a hybrid vehicle, we're going to have to own some of these gloves, and we're going to have to know how to test them before we go there and disconnect that battery.
Right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to test them first.
Yeah,
I'll
let's
do
do
one
that.
and you do one. So here,
Okay.
you take.
This is my
take
first
this one.
time now. You be
All
gentle
right.
with me.
Oh, okay. I'll try.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing we're going to do is just quickly look at the outside to
Okay.
see if you see anything that's apparently wrong with them, cuts and nicks and bruises
Right.
and things. And then we're going to look at the inside first.
Okay.
'Cause that's the thing that most people don't think about. Is what do they look like on the inside? So what we're
Smells
going to do.
okay in there too.
Yeah, does it?
Yeah.
Yours, yeah, mine does too. Okay, so put it on, turn it inside out.
Turn it inside out.
Yeah, the
Okay.
fingers never want to come out right, so
All right.
let's do this. Let's roll them up
All right.
real tight. And if they're holding air, that means there's no pinhole, right? Which means they should pop the fingers out. And so we've done that, and there's no nicks and cuts. And how you doing on yours?
I'm doing okay. You know, usually when I'm working with rubber like this, it's in a different scenario.
Is it really? Yeah, I can see that you're all thumbs on.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of practice that way either.
All right, so mine looks good. How about you?
I'm good.
All
I'm
right,
good.
so now we're going to do is flip it
I
back
think.
the other way.
Okay, yep, we're holding there.
Okay, now let's go back the other way.
Okay.
And so really we're checking the inside and the outside.
And boy,
Now,
I'll tell you what, you got to do this.
You do.
You
Now-
got to be safe.
be kind of careful now. Roll it up really good and tight because what I want you to do, you see it's holding air, but listen. You know, are there any pinholes?
Yeah.
Like a balloon sort of a thing.
Yeah, if it's holding air, I mean, it's got to be.
Yep.
My fingers don't come out like yours do.
Well, you just have to practice. I
It's
guess.
practice,
Yeah,
I guess.
That's
eh?
right.
I'll have to take this home tonight.
Yeah, there you go. All right,
Practice
so
it.
once we get that done, then we can put the glove on.
You didn't know I was so uncoordinated, did you?
No, I didn't even check. I didn't check.
There we go.
Didn't
Oh,
check
I
the
got it.
resume for coordination. All right, then I'm going to put my leather protective glove on over the rubber glove.
Okay.
There's a lot of sheet metal and things that are going to be around what you're going to be doing as you disconnect the high voltage, and you want to be sure that you don't cut the gloves. They're kind of pricey.
They feel
actually.
good too. That doesn't feel bad.
No, and you can't pick up little small things, but you certainly can pick up the kind of bolts and tools and stuff that we need to do this job.
Nice.
So now we're ready to shut this down.
Yeah, let's shut this thing down.
Right.
And while you're going back and doing that, I'm going to announce who won.
Oh,
our
yeah,
contest.
the contest.
Yeah, our
Okay.
T-shirt contest.
Very good. Okay.
Yes.
I'll go get ready to do that.
All right, you want to take this back with you?
No, we'll leave it right
Leave it
there.
right there. Okay. All right, very good. Did we have any winners? Let's take a look here. Carlos. Carlos Sanchez. Yes, 3.5 is the correct answer. All right. Very good, Carlos. Carlos, nice comment, too. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we do appreciate you being out there because, like I said before, without you being there, we wouldn't be here. That's what it's all about. All right. Bring up my email address, if you can. That's Jim. Okay, that's Jim Bates Productions. Okay, if you want to go out onto YouTube, you want to check out Jim Bates' channel, that's where you go, right there. Okay, if you want to bring up my email address then. Okay, once he brings up the email address, send me an email with your, that's mark.hicks@wellsve.com, okay? And send me an email with your mail-in address and your shirt size, and we'll get you a T-shirt out tomorrow. All right, Jim, how are you doing back there?
I'm doing really good.
You all set? Okay, let's go back to Jim. There he is. And this you have to disconnect it by taking the back seat out, which is very interesting. It's a little bit of work, but I would do it. Okay, Jim.
Well, as you can see, we have the back seat already flipped up. It's a kind of a simple process. There's one bolt that holds the bottom one. You take that out, get that out of your way. 3 bolts for the back. And as you move the back seat forward, it will expose this section of the vehicle. And this is where the high voltage battery pack is over here. There's a DC to DC converter here. There's the batteries ECUs over here, a bunch of electronics. But this section right here, this is where we have the high voltage disconnect. And actually it's a switch, kind of like a light switch, and it's behind this cover. So I'm leaving my gloves on, and just to be safe, and I'm going to use my insulated wrench just to be safe.
Right.
So you can see an insulated ratchet and an extension, but I'm using one of my regular sockets, and that's just fine. In this particular case, on the Honda, there are 2 10mm fasteners, and so we'll take those out. And as you can see, the cover starts to come loose. Occasionally, especially the first time that this is done on the vehicle, the cover might be a little bit sticky, so you can take a screwdriver and kind of pop it loose. And behind that we have a switch, and you can see it says on, and that's the switch position now, and off. So what we'll do with our glove on, and only with our glove on, is we'll move the switch from the on to the off position. Now what you want to do is wait about 5 minutes or so for the capacitors in the inverter to discharge. That way the whole system will be completely safe. You can do a 0 voltage check, and we're going to show you how to do that in one of these future installments. But once you've finished working on the vehicle and you go to repower the system, or turn the system back on, if you put your glove on and go to push the switch up, you'll notice that it won't move. The reason for that is there's a little safety built in here so that the switch couldn't be bumped or accidentally turned on while someone was still working on the vehicle.
That's pretty smart.
That would not be safe.
No.
So notice here there's a little red button. And if I push that button in, then I can move the switch back into the on position. And now this vehicle is ready to power up again. And I'll put the cover back on and put the seats back, and we'll be done with this part of it.
Okay, perfect. All right. That's not really too hard to do. The hardest part is getting this back seat out, that kind of stuff. But that's really not a big deal. And considering the safety risk, I would do it. I would do it. This is a regular customer of mine. They're coming in for regular service. I would do that.
Right. It's easy enough to do. Only takes a few minutes, but you got to be safe. gloves, check them, make sure they're okay. If you have insulated tools for that extra margin of safety, go ahead and use those.
Right. Okay, that's great. Jim, can I talk you into coming back again sometime?
Yeah,
Maybe next month?
We'll talk about that. Maybe,
Okay.
maybe we can make that happen. I'd be happy to come back.
I would like to do 2 right in a row if we could,
Okay.
if that's possible. And I'll get them in here. All right. So
right.
we'll get them back in. If it's not next month, it'll be in the future for sure.
One thing, if you weren't taking notes, yesterday on my YouTube channel, I put a video of the manufacturer explaining how to check all of these gloves and what they do at the factory when they're recertifying them for you. So check that out on my YouTube channel.
Right, and that's your YouTube channel right there, right below my email address. So
Right.
we're all set to go.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
This
That's
is cool stuff. I love it. I love it being able to work on these now. I feel a lot more comfortable.
All right.
All right, what do you want to do?
Lunch.
Lunch. Let's go do lunch. All right.
See you next time.
Yeah, we're having subs today.
All right.
Whee!